Well, in today's video, we are pulling the amp rack out and pretty much rebuilding it. So this is just the process of me doing that, kind of thinking out loud, and we'll see how far we get. Well, as usual, starting the camera after I pull everything apart and have to dig through 500 Allen keys to find the right size. Here is the amp rack. Here's how it used to be stacked with the JAD 1200.1 and the 900.5 here. I did like how it was all wired up, but we're going to switch it up a little bit. Battery is going to be turned sideways. I think I'm going to put the battery on this side, stack the amps on this side, and hopefully my fuse block that I just made yesterday is going to fit in the middle here. So we're going to rip this all apart, see what we can salvage. I know this isn't going to work because it's not wide enough. So we're going to have to do some figuring out. Here is my subwoofer box. It's two VCW 12 version 2s. And Steve Mead 2-channel terminal into Big Ass Ports 8-inch Aero Port Versatune kit. Right now it is the full length, so it's 22 inches. I forget the exact specifications of this box, but I will post, I'll cut the video and put a picture of the cutouts and dimensions and tuning. Well, we're back. We got this all disassembled. You can see this is where I had a cheap fuse holder and it came loose, and loose connections get hot and do that. Here's the little fuse block that I made. I'm hoping that it'll fit. So actually it would be this way because the battery is going on this side, amps are going on this side, but we got to make sure everything fits. So give me a second, we'll set this up and see what we look like. So I had these excess power terminals, and if you can see, I already wiped most of it off. There's a little bit of corrosion, and then they cracked. So excess power, if I remember correctly, you're only supposed to tighten these to 8 foot-pounds, which is basically just snug. These were a lot more than snug, so that's on me. We're going to reuse these terminals, but I'm not going to use these. These are just some lead terminal posts. You can see the corrosion on this guy. Not a big fan of these. They worked for a while. Here's everything that I had. So I had NVX terminals. I had an NVX 0 gauge to 4 gauge dual fuse block. I actually have 2 of those because I, for some reason, thought I would run 4 gauge. Here's my isolator. This is my limiting factor. See, I stripped out some of the threads there, so that's kind of questionable, but 200 amp relay. This is rated to 300 amps burst, but I'm not gonna test that. The battery as a buffer really helps. Got my SMD fuse holder for coming in from the front battery. So all my big power wires, you want to fuse at every source. So if you are running a wire between batteries, you want it fused at each end, where if you only had one battery, you only need it fused next to the main battery. I'm running a 500 because I couldn't find anything above 300, and I know I could pull more than 300. So, especially I have a 340 amp alternator, so it's definitely possible. I need to get, I'll keep the 500s between the batteries, but I need to get probably 250s or 300s once I go to 1 ohm on that 5K. Just being realistic, I don't want to blow fuses all the time. Yeah, this spacing is going to be a little tight, but it's doable. I copied this amp rack from a Steve Mead video when he made a system for Syph Morrison. This is basically the same exact shape and style that he did. He made these little metal feet. I used a little metal brake to do that. Once this is all done, I will be actually mounting this before it just sat in here. Quick status update. I decided to take the adapter off just because there's really no need for it. This should only be pulling like 30 amps at most. It has two 40 amp fuses, so that's why I'm running an 80 amp fuse there, just to match it. But I think I'll just run 8 gauge, no adapter, makes this a lot shorter, a lot simpler. It looks like this will work out just fine. I might bend these up just so that they can get to the battery terminals better. I'm gonna have to figure out the fuse and the isolator. I might make a little stand right here and put some little L brackets in there somehow. I need to center the battery before I tighten this all down for a final time. But yeah, we've got our 3/8 threaded rod there for stacking the amps. Lines up just right. We've got our 1/4 to hold the battery down. That's just tightened by hand for now. And then I gotta mount this down, bend these up. Might bend these up as well, just a little bit. And then from there, we can start running our wires. So that'll be the fun part, and I'll probably take this inside because it's quite cold. But we are almost there, and we're back. So, got everything thrown together. Amp is mounted, wires are run. Not a big fan of this sleeving, just because it's slightly see-through. You can see the blue on some of these. You can see these are one's black, one's blue. So this is 1/2" sleeve. Should probably use 3/4, that way it's not stretched out as much, and it'll still be, it won't be, you can't see through it. Went with the 8 gauge on here so that I didn't need adapters on the amp. Ended up using these terminals with a bolt rather than the SAE stud with the clamp on terminal and all that. I'd rather have rings and lugs and be able to tighten these down to the correct torque spec. Added washers on the tops of these with appropriate sized ring terminals, so that'll be to the front. I still need to make a board here to put the isolator and the fuse for the power wire from the front. With this, the opening of the trunk is kind of angled like this, so that won't be visible with the board that I put there. So it's going to be kind of temporary, just something sturdy to mount the fuse holder to. So I don't care how that looks too much. On this side, this is where the speaker output is. And so my only concern there is with the trunk kind of cutting that away from being able to be seen. For competitions, I'm going to need a lot of extra slack just so I can pull the wire over so that they can put a clamp on it, stick the probes into the speaker wire to measure the voltage. That's how they measure your real-time wattage, make the competitions fair. So I just need to remember to leave extra space. With the RCAs, you see for the 4-channel, it's here. This is the single input. Instead of cutting apart RCAs or trying to do a bunch of different adapters and make what I had work, I just spent the $10. I ordered a 2-pack of X Series Y splitters from NVX. Those will be here in a few days. My thought was, if I have those, I take my existing RCAs to here. The splitter not only is a perfect amount of extension to get up to this next amp, it's also just a single additional connection to there, and it's a 2-pack, so the radio I'm getting, whether it's a single output or dual output for the sub channel, I'll have splitters for either way, and I can just connect my RCAs to that and get rid of my EQ, and then no more splicing and adapting over and over again to make something work. So RCAs are figured out. Those will be in a few days, so a few more days without bass, but it'll be worth it. I can put my 4-channel stuff in for now. Once I get that splitter there, the brace for the isolator and the fuse installed. I have a few feet, probably somewhere between 2 and 3 feet of zero gauge there, and I have a 25-foot spool to go in the car to go from the ground of the front to the ground of the rear. Best way to ground is directly from the batteries, eliminating chassis grounds, eliminating possible noise in the system. So that should all be good. That is the current plan. So the positive run was between 12 and 13 feet. The negative will be about the same. And I have a 25-foot spool. So that means I'm going to have something like 12 to 15 feet of wire left over. Like a 10 to 12 foot section in one piece, and then 2 to 3 feet in the other, however long that is. So plenty of extra. So I can run my little jumpers from the fuse to the battery and the fuse to the isolator. When I get around to redoing everything, this will be remade in birch with the risers, the main board. Probably won't run the feet there. I'll try to make it a little bit wider. Probably going to put some type of a riv nut in the floor of the trunk and put little bolts here just to hold it down. I might actually do 2 on each side just to make sure it doesn't, you know, try to flop around or bounce or whatever. Because this is a lot of weight, it'll have a lot of inertia. So you hit a bump, it's going to want to keep rising even when the car doesn't. So it'll rattle around, and we don't want that. So making it solid will be good. I'll be able to redo the fuse block here that I made, redo that with either birch or HDPE. That's the plastic that a lot of fuse blocks are made of, but also a lot of cutting boards are made of. So that plastic material will be easy to work with. Make that out of that, and should be good. Not a lot more to go over. The birch will cut out a ton of weight, which is what I'm going for. And when I get the 4-channel, the ground and power will be the same orientation as these. So they'll be twisted for now. I might consider looking at different batteries so that excess power makes reverse polarity. So the terminals are just flipped. So the positive would be on this side. I could get something like that. That way my power and ground wires aren't twisted over each other. Just makes for a cleaner install. And that's kind of what I'm going for at this point, because this is very functional. And eventually I'm going to work on cleaning it up more and more. Anyway, just wanted to show where I'm at, show my progress. I've got the amps mounted, all my power wires run, battery mounted, all of the riv nuts turned out great. Everything is tightened down. I used the capacitor charger across these fuses to get the capacitors in the amps charged. I think that's important to do a sort of soft turn on rather than just throwing a cable on it, letting it spark and shock the system. Using like a resistor, or some people put a light with you know, each side of the light across it. The current flowing through it will make the light turn on. When the light bulb goes out, that's when you know it's done charging, because there's no more current flowing across. It does not take very long. So that was only a few seconds, and then I was able to throw the fuses in. No sparking, nothing shocking anything. So that's good. So I think everything is ready to go. Literally just need to plug my speaker wires in, which are all labeled in the car, which I always recommend labeling everything because it makes it so much easier to put it back together rather than testing each speaker. I'll have to run new jumpers. Well, I should be able to run the old remote to there, and then I'll just have to make a new jumper from there to there. And then my remote turn-ons will be good. RCAs will be good when that comes in the mail. And only thing left to do now is, in the near future, I'll get a radio from a friend of mine. So we'll have a nice radio finally, instead of the EQ and the Bluetooth modules. Be able to put USB music on there, and should be good. Well, I got a little sick this week, so that's slowed down this process, but we're just about done with the amp rack. Just a little bit more wiring to do with the ground wire from between the batteries. Running 0 gauge for everything, and I'll make a second video, so this isn't an extremely long video, and we'll test the clip light and tune the amps, and should have this thing playing pretty quickly here. So stay tuned for that, like and subscribe so you'll see the videos as they come out, and stay tuned for more. Check the description for links to all the products I'm using, and have a good day.